Homer was both a kid and a teen in 1969. So apparently he was both watching the moon landing as a teenager and running around at Woodstock as a little kid in the exact same year, which is impressive. Honestly, most of us can barely manage being one age at a time, but Homer out here speedrunning puberty between July and August like he's got somewhere to be. The moon landing happened in July 1969, and Homer's sitting there as a full teenager, probably eating chips on the couch. Then Woodstock rolls around in August, and suddenly he's like 7 years old, covered in mud, and probably confused about why everyone's so happy. Unless Homer discovered time travel or went through some Benjamin Button nonsense, this timeline makes absolutely no sense. The show just needed Homer to be whatever age fit the joke, which I respect. But it does mean Homer either aged 5 years in a month or de-aged like he found a cursed fountain. Either way, the man's relationship with linear time is more complicated than most marriages. The Simpson gene doesn't apply to some Simpsons. There's this whole episode claiming that all male Simpsons are doomed to be dumb and unsuccessful because of some defective gene that runs in the family, which sounds scientific until you remember that Homer's half-brother Herb exists and is literally a car manufacturer who made millions. Last time I checked, building a successful car company requires at least a few functioning brain cells. But here's where it gets even more ridiculous. A later episode reveals that Homer's stupidity isn't even genetic. The dude has a crayon lodged in his brain from childhood, a Crayola. His entire personality is basically the result of a Crayola medical emergency. So the Simpson gene is either fake, selective, or just gave up on Homer specifically. This means Lisa spent an entire episode having an existential crisis about her doomed genetic future, when really, she should have just been worried about arts and crafts accidents. The Simpson gene isn't a curse, it's just bad parenting and questionable decisions about where to stick crayons. Mr. Burns' age changes wildly. The show can't decide if Burns is old, ancient, or literally prehistoric. In season 2, they say he's 81, which is old, but believable. Then later episodes bump him up to 104, which is pushing it, but okay, maybe he's got good genes. Then, Fraudcast News comes along and claims he's 123 years old, which would mean he was born in the 1800s and somehow still running a nuclear power plant. At this point, Burns' age changes more often than Homer's job performance. The man has been every age between retirement home ready and should be carbon dated. You could tell me Burns is 200 years old and it would fit just as well as any other number they've thrown out. The only consistent thing about Burns' age is that it's definitely older than whatever they said last time. He's either the world's worst documented human, or Springfield just stopped keeping track after he hit triple digits. Hey, by the way, I'm posting pretty consistently here, so it would mean a lot if you could subscribe to the channel and drop a like for the algorithm. Lisa's wedding takes place in 2010. Back in 1995, the show did this future episode set in the distant year of 2010, showing Lisa as an adult getting married. It was supposed to be this far-off glimpse of what the family might become. Except then, the actual year, 2010, rolled around and the Simpsons were still doing their thing, attending the Vancouver Olympics like nothing happened. So either Lisa's wedding took place in an alternate timeline, or the show just decided that particular future doesn't count anymore. The episode showed Marge with different hair, Bart doing stuff, and the whole family aged up. But then 2010 came into real life and the Simpsons were like, nah, we're gonna stay exactly the same. Thanks. This is what happens when your show runs for so long that you outlive your own future episodes. The far future of 2010 is now ancient history, and that wedding is stuck in some weird temporal limbo where it both happened and definitely did not happen. How did Arnold Schwarzenegger become the president? The Simpsons movie just casually made him the president of the United States, which is wild because the dude was born in Austria. You can't just ignore the natural-born citizen requirement because it's convenient for the plot. That's literally in the Constitution, and even Springfield has to follow at least some rules. But there he is, sitting in the Oval Office, deciding to trap an entire town under a giant dome like it's a totally normal presidential decision. No explanation for how he got there, no mention of a constitutional amendment, just Arnold being president because why not? The show usually avoids saying who the president is specifically to dodge these kinds of problems, but the movie said, forget it, and gave us President Schwarzenegger anyway. Maybe they had a really good lawyer in Springfield who found a loophole, or maybe the Constitution just doesn't apply when ratings are involved. Why does Sheldon Skinner look like Armin Tamzarian? The principal and the pauper drops this bomb that Skinner isn't actually Skinner. He's some guy named Armin Tamzarian who stole a dead soldier's identity, which is already insane, but whatever. The real problem is that earlier episodes showed us Skinner's father, Sheldon Skinner, and the dude looks exactly like Principal Skinner. So either Armin Tamzarian happened to look identical to the real Seymour Skinner by complete coincidence, or the show just forgot that they'd already established what Skinner's family looked like. Because if Armin is the imposter, why does he look like Sheldon's biological son? This episode is so universally hated that the show basically pretends it never happened. Even within the episode itself, they literally put Armin on a bus and tell everyone to never speak of it again. The writers created a plot hole so massive that the only solution was to retcon their own retcon within the same 22 minutes. Homer's job timeline makes no sense, and Maggie Makes 3 shows all these flashbacks of Homer working as a safety inspector at the power plant, which is fine until you remember that Homer's Odyssey is literally about him getting hired as the safety inspector. So either Homer was already the safety inspector before he became the safety inspector, or time doesn't mean anything anymore. The show needed Homer to have his current job for the flashback to work, but they forgot that they'd already done an origin story for that exact job. It's like if someone showed you baby photos of yourself at your current job before you were even born, the timeline is cooked. This is what happens when you run a show for decades and need flashbacks to work. You just hope nobody remembers the earlier episodes that contradict everything. Spoiler alert, people remembered. Fat Tony's inconsistent first name. He starts out as William Fat Tony Williams, which is perfectly fine. Basic, but it works. Then suddenly he's Anthony D'Amico, which became the name everyone knows. Okay, maybe William was a mistake or a nickname situation, we can work with that. But then, Insane Clown Poppy comes out of nowhere and reveals his real name is Marion. So we've got William, Anthony, and Marion all floating around as this guy's first name with zero explanation. Is he in witness protection 3 different times? Does he just change his name whenever he feels like it? Is the mob really bad at paperwork? The show never addresses this. Fat Tony just keeps existing with multiple incompatible identities like it's totally normal. At this point, you could tell me his real name is Theodore, and I'd just add it to the list. What happened to Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure? After Phil Hartman died, the show retired both characters out of respect, which is completely understandable. The problem is, they never explained what happened to them in the show's universe. They're just gone. Edna Krabappel got a whole send-off when her voice actor passed away, but Hutz and McClure just stopped existing. One day, Lionel Hutz was advertising on bus benches and working as the world's worst lawyer, and the next day, he's just not there anymore. Troy McClure went from hosting every educational film and infomercial to absolutely nothing. No death, no moving away, no explanation. They just ceased to be. It's like when your friend group has that one person who slowly stops showing up, and eventually everyone just accepts they're not coming back. Except this is a TV show where people literally never age or leave, so 2 main recurring characters just disappearing is actually weird. Nelson's father, the whole dad went out for cigarettes and never came back thing is Nelson's defining sad backstory. Except his dad appears in episodes before he supposedly left, and he looks different every single time. It's like the show couldn't decide what Nelson's dad should look like, so they just kept trying new designs. How do you abandon your family in the future when you're still showing up in the past? Unless Nelson's dad is time traveling specifically to make his own backstory inconsistent, this makes no sense. The timeline of his disappearance is broken. Maybe he left multiple times and kept coming back like a boomerang nobody asked for. Maybe there are several men who all claim to be Nelson's dad. Maybe Springfield just has really flexible definitions of abandoned family. Whatever the explanation is, the show isn't giving it to us. What happened to Herb's baby translator? Homer's half-brother goes from bankrupt to rich again by creating a device that translates baby sounds into understandable language. This is literally world-changing technology. Parents everywhere would kill for this. The Simpsons themselves have a baby who could actually communicate her needs, but nope, it shows up in one episode, makes Herb rich, and then disappears forever. Never mentioned again, never used, just gone. Maggie continues making pacifier noises while a device that could translate those noises collects dust somewhere. This is like if someone invented teleportation and then everyone just decided to keep driving cars anyway. The baby translator should be in every home in Springfield, but instead it exists in whatever void swallows up convenient plot devices once their episode ends. The Simpson house address keeps changing. 742 Evergreen Terrace is the address now. It's canon. Everyone knows it. But early seasons threw out addresses like they were just making them up on the spot, because they were 59 Evergreen Terrace, 94, 430, 723, 1024, 1092, 1094, and even 430 Spalding Way, all got used at different points. At one point, Snake's house was labeled 742 Evergreen Terrace, which means either Snake is the Simpsons' neighbor or the show just recycled the number and hoped nobody would notice. Spoiler, people noticed. This is what happens when early seasons don't think the show is going to run for 30 plus years and spawn an entire industry of fans who catalog every single detail. Now we're stuck with a house that has had more addresses than most people have in their entire lives. Marge's inconsistent fear of flying. Fear of flying is entirely about Marge having a severe phobia of airplanes, complete with therapy and childhood trauma. It's a whole thing. Except in Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington, the family just boards a plane like it's a casual Tuesday with zero mention of Marge being terrified. So either Marge developed her fear of flying after already flying just fine, or the show forgot about her phobia when it wasn't convenient for that particular plot. Both options are messy. You can't have a character-defining fear that only exists when the episode specifically needs it. This is like being deathly allergic to peanuts, but only on Wednesdays. Either Marge is scared of planes or she's not. But the show wants to have it both ways depending on whether they need a therapy episode or a family vacation. What happened to the Simpson farmhouse? In E.I.E.I.D.O., the family goes back to Homer's childhood farmhouse to grow tomako, that weird tomato-tobacco hybrid. Cool premise. One problem. Earlier episodes showed that farmhouse burning down in a massive fire, like completely destroyed. Gone. But here it is again. Perfectly intact, ready for Homer to do weird agricultural experiments. No explanation for how it unburned itself, no mention of rebuilding, just a farmhouse that decided death wasn't for it. Maybe the fire was in an alternate timeline, maybe Springfield has really good contractors, maybe buildings in this town just regenerate like Wolverine. Whatever the case, that farmhouse went from completely destroyed to fine actually, with zero justification. The Lisa's Wedding Paradox. That 1995 episode showed us a future where Ned Flanders and Edna Krabappel are both alive in 2010, which seemed fine at the time. Then Maude died falling off a grandstand at a NASCAR race, and Edna's character was retired after her voice actor passed away. So that whole future timeline is now impossible. You can't have a future episode where dead characters are alive unless you're doing some multiverse nonsense, which the show wasn't. This was supposed to be the future of the Simpson family, but now it's a future that can never happen because the timeline got rewritten. It's like writing a story about your friend's wedding in 5 years, and then your friend moves to Antarctica and becomes a penguin researcher instead. The future you predicted is just gone now, replaced by reality being weird. Rod and Todd's age keeps changing. Todd gets called 10 years old in one episode, then Rod has his 10th birthday, then a flashback claims Rod is 2 years older than Todd. These things cannot all be true at the same time, unless Springfield exists in some mathematical nightmare dimension. Even the rock-bottom corrections, those rapid-fire apology lists, contradict later episodes about their ages. The show has given so many different age combinations for these kids that you could make a whole spreadsheet and still not find consistency. At this point, Rod and Todd's ages are less unclear and more the show is actively gaslighting us. They're whatever age the episode needs them to be, and we're just supposed to accept that math doesn't work the same way in Springfield. Apu's nephew aged 15 years overnight. Jay shows up in Homer the Heretic as a young kid, just a little boy helping out at the Quickie Mart. Then he returns in much Apu about something as a full-grown adult, completely aged up like he went through some hyperbolic time chamber situation. While the Simpsons stay frozen at the same ages forever, Apu's family apparently operates on normal human time. His octuplets slowly grow older across seasons, but Jay straight up speedran puberty between appearances. This is what happens when you have a show with a floating timeline where the main characters never age, but side characters sometimes do. Jay got caught in the crossfire and went from elementary school to adulthood while Bart stayed in 4th grade. Why was Ned home in Homer the Heretic? The whole plot of Homer the Heretic is Homer staying home from church while everyone else in Springfield goes. Ned is especially preachy about it, really laying into Homer about the importance of attending service. Then Homer's house catches fire and Ned suddenly appears at his house to save him. Wait, why is Ned home? Wasn't he just telling Homer how important it is to go to church? Shouldn't he be at church like everyone else? Unless Ned has the world's fastest church commute or can teleport, there's no way he should be available to rescue Homer. Maybe Ned left early. Maybe he forgot something. Maybe he has a special arrangement with God where he gets to skip sometimes. The show doesn't explain it, so we're just left with Ned being a hypocrite who lectures about church attendance and then doesn't attend church. Lindsay Neagle's random political flip. For multiple episodes, she is consistently shown as this right-wing corporate type, very clearly a Republican. Then, E pluribus Wiggum happens, and suddenly, she's at a Democratic strategy meeting like she's been a Democrat the whole time. No explanation, no character growth, no mention of changing parties. She just is a Democrat now because the episode needed someone at that meeting. It's like if your friend who's been vegan for years suddenly shows up at a steakhouse cooking competition as a judge. Political affiliations aren't supposed to just flip randomly between episodes. Even in a cartoon, people usually have reasons for changing their entire belief system. But Lindsay apparently woke up one day and decided to switch teams without telling anyone. What happened to Janie? Early seasons showed her as Lisa's consistent friend. They hung out, talked, did kid stuff together. Then, the show evolved Lisa into this isolated intellectual character who doesn't have friends, which is fine for her arc. The problem is, they never explained what happened to Janie. She didn't move away. There was no falling out. No dramatic friend breakup episode. Janie just slowly faded from the show until Lisa was suddenly friendless and nobody mentioned the friend she definitely used to have. This is like having a best friend all through school and then pretending you've always been alone. Lisa's whole "I have no friends" thing would hit harder if we hadn't already seen her with friends for several seasons, but the show just memory holed Janie and moved on like she never existed. If you enjoyed this video, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so please subscribe, and thanks for watching.